All right, today we're jumping into a book with a pretty bold claim that most of what we call discipleship today isn't actually working. It argues we're not really forming people. Instead, it lays out a model for deep, transformative mentorship, all aimed at rebuilding what it calls a broken chain. Let's get into it. Right off the bat, the book hits us with this quote, and it really sets the stage for everything. See, the point isn't just to fill our heads with more knowledge. It's about forging a kind of person who is so solid, so resilient that they can't be shaken. And this is the key part, they can then turn around and reproduce that same strength in other people.
And that really boils down to the central question of the whole book. It forces you to ask yourself, have I just been informed? Have I just collected facts and attended classes? Or have I truly been formed, shaped, molded, and fundamentally changed by the process? There's a huge difference.
So to really get the solution the book proposes, we first have to understand the problem it's trying to solve. The author diagnoses it as a crisis, a broken chain of mentorship. The whole idea of this chain comes from a verse in 2 Timothy. You've got this clear four-generation pattern. Paul trains Timothy, Timothy trains faithful men, and those men go on to train others. The book argues that this intentional handoff is the real engine of spiritual growth. But somewhere along the way, that engine is stalled. The chain is broken. And this is where the rubber meets the road. On one side, you have the informed believer. This person knows the stuff, they show up, they can pass the test. But on the other side, you have the formed disciple. This person doesn't just know the content, they embody it. They've been shaped by it. And critically, they become a reproducer, ready to start that whole process over again with someone new. So you have to ask, how did we get here? How does a chain like that just break? Well, the book says it wasn't some big malicious plot. It was more like a slow drift, where we gradually accepted a few well-intentioned substitutes for the real thing.
And here they are, the sermon, the program, and information. Now the book is super clear. These are all good things. But they ended up being asked to do a job they were never ever designed for. That deep, messy, life-on-life work of actually shaping a human soul.
And you can see the result, right? We shifted from a participatory model, where you grow because you're actually known and held accountable by others, to more of a spectator model. Growth becomes this thing you passively receive from an expert up on a stage. It's the difference between being an active player on the field and an anonymous face in the stands. Okay, so that's the diagnosis of the problem. What's the fix? Well, the great thing is the book doesn't try to invent some brand new, complicated system. Instead, it says we just need to recover 3 distinct patterns of mentorship that are already right there in the New Testament. So the model weaves together these 3 strands. You've got the master pattern from Jesus, that's the foundational arc, then the portable pattern from Paul, that's the relationship you can replicate anywhere. And then there's this third, often overlooked pattern, the one from Barnabas. And this is where it gets really interesting. This forgotten pattern from Barnabas is all about making a framework for failure and restoration. I mean, think about it. Barnabas was the guy who vouched for Paul when everyone else was terrified of him. And he was the one who gave John Mark a second chance after he totally bailed on a mission. It's the part of the model that makes room for grace when things, inevitably go wrong. Okay, so by drawing from those 3 biblical patterns, the book lays out the practical core of the entire model. It's an 8-stage journey that basically maps out how this whole formation process actually happens from start to finish. And here's the arc. It all starts with intentional selection. Then you move into proximity, getting close enough to actually see how your mentor lives. That leads to modeling. Then you're sent out or deployed on a real mission. That's always followed by a debrief. Then comes the real test, formation under pressure. Finally, you get affirmation and then release to go and do it all over again with someone else. This brings us to what might be the most crucial step in that arc, stage 6, formation under pressure. The argument here is just massive. It says that deep, unshakable character isn't forged when things are easy. It's in the moments of difficulty, suffering, and even failure that true formation actually happens. They aren't obstacles. They're the very tools God uses. So the whole model just flips the script on how we see failure. It asks this powerful question, what is failure for? Instead of it being this disqualifying event that takes you out of the game, failure is presented as a necessary, powerful tool that God uses to build the kind of character that just can't be shaken. And this brings us all the way to the ultimate purpose of this whole thing. See, the point isn't just to create one really mature, solid individual.
The goal is actually way, way bigger than that.
The whole point is to avoid becoming what the book calls a terminal disciple, where you're the last stop, the end of the line. You're a destination. No, the goal is to become a reproductive disciple. You're not the end of the chain. You are a new point of origin, ready to forge the next link. The system is designed to keep going.
And this slide just shows you the fruit of a healthy working chain. When this model is in motion, evangelism stops being an awkward, programmed event and just becomes a natural overflow of who you are. New leaders are raised up from inside the community, not just hired from the outside. And the desire to start new things, new communities, it's just a natural impulse. It's the normal outcome.
So in the end, the book turns the tables and leaves us with this really direct, really personal question. Because this entire model, with all its stages and patterns, it all hinges on one simple but incredibly costly thing. Are you willing to let someone get close enough to see your real, unfiltered life and be formed by watching you? That, right there, is where the chain is either forged or broken.